But we all made potjies now. I know it's a South African thing, and just recently, about 4 months ago, was the first time I woke up to a rainy day. It was cold, it was rainy, and somehow, I don't know how, this thought came into my head, you should try a potjie today. And so I spent 3 hours on YouTube, because all of you know the University of YouTube helps a lot when you don't know how to do something. So I researched probably about 20 different videos on how to make potjie with charcoal, because I didn't have wood. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to make a potjie today. I researched, I did all this stuff. Now, just T's and C's. After the service, you are more than welcome to come tell me how to do it right. I did it the way I did it because that's what I saw on YouTube, okay? But one of the things is I went to buy all the ingredients, way too many ingredients. I fed a family of 4. I could have fed them for a week with the amount of stuff I bought. So don't follow YouTube's ingredients instructions. That's way too many. But the one thing that all the videos had in common was that the heat of the potjie matters. Not too hot, not too cold. And so when you use coals, like in this picture, you would have to add and remove coals the whole time. That's how I did it. I know you can come tell me later how to do it the right way, but that's how I did it. I add and removed coal as my thing was simmering and boiling and burning at some points. I think I'm South African now, right? Finally, even though I was born here, I am officially a South. If you haven't made a potjie yet, today's the day. You need about 6 to 8 hours. Cool. But just the lesson I learned from making a potjie. Coals only stay hot when they're close together. The same is true for you and I. You cannot spiritually stay warm if you're spiritually isolated. Coals need company, and so do Christians. Tell the person next to you, you're a coal. See, if you pull one coal aside, at first the glow is still there. So you know, we so often get distracted because when we isolate ourselves, the glow is still there. You take a coal away from the fire, the glow is still there, but over time it starts fading out. And the chances are when you bring it back together with the rest, it will catch fire once again. Matthew 18:20 says, "Where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there I am with them." In my name. What a promise that when we gather together, when we truly gather in His name, something unique happens to you and to me. Now, I'm not saying the presence of God doesn't meet you when you're on your own, but something unique and powerful happens when a community of believers come together and experience the presence of Jesus. We walk away different, stronger, and so much better for it. That's what happens when the Bible says we come around His name, which also shows me that isolation is not just an emotional problem, it's actually a spiritual problem. Ecclesiastes 4 verse 9 to 12. You'll see mine is highlighted. So just so you are informed in what happened in the first service is I told Callum, mine's highlighted, the people know when to repeat, yours isn't. So between services, clearly they went to highlight his offering verses. So Jeãn, I hope he's buying you soup today, because now I can't one-up you from here. But you can repeat with me. Are than one. It's that simple. 2 are better than 1 because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, but pity anyone who falls and has no one to help them up. Also, if lie down, they will. Marriage 101. Hello, verse 11. Let's go. If you are married today and you're feeling a little bit distant from your spouse, it's in the verse. Like, even if you guys aren't talking to each other, when you get home and for the rest of the week, the month, and the year, just cuddle. Eventually, you'll feel warm. If you're dating, not you. But how can one keep warm alone? Though one may be overpowered, can themselves. A cord is not quickly broken. This is a picture for me of coals coming together, of something that heats up, warm. 2 generate something that one alone cannot. When one stumbles, the other one helps them up. When the night gets cold, and in winter it definitely gets cold, 2 warm each other up. And when the enemy comes to you, we hold a line together. We can defeat better. And I love when God is woven in the middle of all of this, that it's not easily broken. What this verse in verse 10 highlighted to me is that there is danger to isolation. There is danger to isolation. Isolation cools us down. And verse 10 says, pity the one. Pity the one who falls and has no one to help them up. That, if you are a Christian sitting here today, that should break your heart. That if someone else is falling and they have no one else to pick them up. This isn't just an observation from the writer of Ecclesiastes. This is his wisdom and his weariness of heart saying, hey, something isn't right here. This is heartbreaking. This is tragic for the church of Jesus Christ when someone falls down, but there's no one to pick them up. I mean, we live in a world with this myth of self-sufficiency and you're a self-made man. No, you're not. We need community. You never got to where you got to on your own. You never got there in isolation. You need community. I mean, you can watch church from a couch, but I did it for the whole of COVID and I hated every second of it. Why? Because it's not just about sitting here listening to a preacher. It's what's happening out there. It's the conversations in between. You got to get back to community. I mean, we can send each other emojis with the prayer hands. You know, they're nice and yellow with the blue on, and it's very cute, and some people think it's a high five maybe. And we can send that and go like, yeah, I'm part of a community. I'm praying for you. That isn't community. In fact, you can attend a church, never speak to anyone, call it your church, and call it community. That's not community. The community is being in each other's lives and spaces. In fact, you can be connected to hundreds of people and yet go to bed lonely at night. Isolation isn't a modern invention, it's a human one. Think about Elijah in the Bible. If you don't know who he is, I'll tell you a bit of the story. Elijah, one of the most powerful prophets in all of Scripture. He stands on Mount Carmel, and so often I have to mistake it for caramel, Mount Carmel, and calls down fire. You can see we're not eating sugar at the moment. I hope it changes soon. But he calls down fire from heaven. He defeats 450 prophets of Baal in one afternoon. And then he leaves people, community, walks a journey to the wilderness, the Bible says, sits under a tree and says, Lord, take me now. I'm the only one. Kill me. Why? Because he walked away from community. He didn't walk away from a loss. He walked away from victory, by the way. He just defeated people. And yet he walked away from a victory into isolation. And his first words is, Lord, kill me now. And the lie of the enemy will always get you when you isolate yourself. That's one of the tricks. When you isolate, you start believing the lie. You get hurt in the church, you pull away from people, you start believing that that church and those people are the worst people ever. Humanity should not have them in it. In fact, breathing is just too much. And sometimes we can get so worked up and believe these lies when God has called us not into isolation, but into community. Because isolation, the danger of isolation is it always lies. It's always lying. It always lies. Because with Elijah, we actually see he wasn't the only one left. There were 7,000 other people who never bowed to Baal. That's what isolation does. It doesn't just make you feel lonely. It makes you believe things that aren't true. Think about Adam and Eve hiding in the garden after the fall, not just hiding from each other, but actually hiding from God. And what they experience in that moment is sin and shame. Because isolation, the danger of it is, you will always feel like you need to isolate yourself when there's sin and when there's shame. The danger of isolation. It will always tell you to step away from the fire. And it will always promise better, but it won't live up to it. Think about the prodigal son, if you don't know who he is. He ran away from his father's house. He left his father's house. He took his whole inheritance. And he ended up sitting in a pigsty eating with the pigs. Lost everything. See, because the danger of isolation is it leaves us in places we were never meant to stay in. And so this is why the community is so important. And we see this beautiful decision of the son where he decides, I'm going to get back up and go back home. And that's the invitation for you and for me today. That if you are in isolation at the moment, if you've stepped away from community, and by community I mean church and the people in church and life that happens because of church, outside of church, if you've pulled away from that, if you're feeling spiritually cold, there's an invitation to, hey, come back home. Get back to the fire. The reality of some of you in this room do feel like that coal that has been pulled aside. Maybe you're physically in church. I hope so. Everybody breathe in and out. Yes, you are physically in church, but not everyone is spiritually here. Maybe you slip in and out of Sunday services without ever connecting with anyone. I know some people are weird, but like, they're actually nice when you get to know them. Maybe you're one of the people that says, I'm fine on my own. And the reason you're saying that is because too many people have hurt you on this journey. And so now I'm fine on my own. I don't need anyone else because it's better to trust me than them. Maybe that's you today. Maybe you've been disappointed. Maybe you've been disappointed by me. By Pastor Stella, very rare, I'm sure, but by me mostly. Maybe you've been hurt by the church, someone in the church. Maybe there's been gossip and conversation that's happened and you've pulled away spiritually and you're cooling down because of someone else. Maybe you're disappointed and hurt. That could be true. Maybe it's halfway through the year, guys. January felt like December. Imagine what July feels like. It's winter. Community takes effort. And you're just like, I'm too tired to invest in people right now. Maybe you're just cooling down slowly over time, because did you know that when you spiritually drift or when you move away from community, it doesn't happen overnight. It slowly starts fading. And that's why it's so hard to track. When did this actually happen? It's been so long. My encouragement to you, if that's you, is try and trace the point where you actually left. Why did I leave? Why am I not on fire for Jesus like I used to be? What happened? What happened? See, isolation isn't neutral. It pulls us inward. It pulls us away from wisdom and accountability. It pulls us away from the voice of God through other people. Because sometimes you're going to hear God's voice through the people around you. My head is so clouded that I need the voice of people around me to hear the voice of God. Isolation can lead you to various spiritual and emotional challenges. It could lead you to vulnerability, to temptation. And that's so often when we pull away from community and God that we step into temptation. And we believe in this church, you got to clap each other right. We're very aggressive. We love each other so much, but we also have to clap you right when you're going wrong. I give you permission. Do not hurt the people around you. Unless they're your friends, then. But some people are falling into depression and there's no one to help them out. Because we've become so apart, we've become distracted from community. Some people are walking with a weak faith. They're hanging on the edge and they need people like you around them to encourage them. St. Augustine said this, remember this, when people choose to withdraw far from a fire, the fire continues to give warmth, but they grow cold. When people choose to withdraw from light, the light continues to be bright in itself, but they are in darkness. This is also the case when people withdraw from God. He's still there. You're the one who moved. But there is a solution. I'm so grateful for part 2 of this message. Tell the person next to you, it's not all doom and gloom. Hebrews 10, 24 and 25. Let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together, as we heard last week, devoting themselves, continually committed to God's work and His people, as some are in the habit of doing, but encourage one another all the more as you see the day approaching. The writer of Hebrews here knew that humanity is going to struggle with drifting from each other and drifting from God, and he's saying, don't. Don't. Why? Because you need it. You need community. You need the church. You need what happens here. You need the gathering of people. You need the commitment to one another. Why? Because it changes your life. I know I wouldn't be the man I am and where I am today if it wasn't for me being in community. I need community. You need community. But here's the best part of it all. Someone needs you. So as much as you need church, the church needs you. It needs your faith. It needs your passion. It needs your love. It needs your prayer. It needs your encouragement. Imagine if the seat next to you was empty. That person can't be there for you because they're not there. Imagine, I don't know how you worship today, so I'm not going to judge. This is just from an external point. I never looked left once. But imagine if she didn't worship today. You might have struggled a little bit. But if she was like, I don't know how you worship. Something rubs off in community. Something happens inside of us. The church needs you, not to fall asleep in a service, but to be like, yes, God, we're doing something. I'm buying soup. I'm being the church. The church needs you. Do not neglect the coming together of the saints. That's the beauty of community. The beauty of community. I love that image of the coal coming together, getting warm. This doesn't require a theological degree. It doesn't require a perfect track record. For those of you who are trying to reach perfection, you will one day. Some of you are already there. It doesn't require you to have it all together. It actually just requires you to come to the fire. Step into this together. The church is meant to be a place for refuge and community, where believers can support each other, where those who don't even know Jesus can find encouragement. That's what the church was called to be, where people can be a little bit vulnerable. Not so quickly judged, but just vulnerable. Hey, I'm sucking at spirituality right now. Is there anyone who can help me out? That's discipleship. That's being the church. In Acts 2, they understood this. The Holy Spirit fell upon them, as we heard last week. A community of people were formed. It wasn't complicated. They didn't ask ChatGPT. They were just like, yo, how do we do this? Oh, well, let's be devoted to one another. Let's be devoted to teaching and fellowship and breaking of bread and prayer and sharing meals and sharing resources before anyone even asked. And the Lord added to their number daily. Because a church on fire draws people to its warmth. And that's why community is important. Listen, we love you so much. I'm so grateful. If you're a guest today, we love you even more. We're so grateful you're sitting here today. But if we don't get community right, the community will never come here. Because they need to see that something's happening between people here. Black, white, colored, Indian, it doesn't matter who you are. People get something right here. Community. Paul writes it in 1 Corinthians 12 that we are the body and every part matters. You are a coal. Tell the person again, you are a coal. So when you pull away from community, guess what happens in the church? When you, as a coal, pull away from community, guess what happens in this church? We lose warmth. The atmosphere is affected by very people that don't attend church, that pull away from community, that isolate themselves. The church, this body, this gathering of people gets affected. It matters. When you come back, when you push close together, the fire responds. And that's the beauty of community. It's that we're better together. We are better together. Two are better than one. I mean, I know 2 sweets go way better than one. My future help will probably be like, I just want one. Just want one. If we ever go back to sugar, that's how we're going to go back. Just one. But 2 are better than one. 2 are better than one. That's why God said it's not good for man to be alone. And I know that was marriage context and relationship context. But we can bring that into a humanity principle. It's not good for humanity to be alone. We're designed like this for community. That's why isolation is so dangerous, because we weren't designed by God to be alone. Liverpool supporters. How did I get there? Community, help me out. When you get that feeling that I want to separate, when I need to move away, that's not weakness, but it is an indication that, hey, this isn't God's design for me. The beauty of community is that we weren't ever in God's plan supposed to be cold. He's never called us to that. It's that we stay warm together. If 2 lie down together, they will keep warm. But how can one keep warm alone? There's a beautiful honesty in that question. How can one keep warm alone? I feel so far from God. I haven't heard His voice or felt His presence for such a long time. Can we quickly look? Are you isolated? Have you taken a step back? Because you're not going to feel warmth if you're alone. Obviously, the answer here is not a rhetorical one. You cannot. You cannot, not for a long time, you cannot get warm alone. And again, the writer's not talking about blankets and body heat. That was for the marriage talk. He's actually talking about the kind of warmth that you can only experience from another person. The warmth of being known by someone. Where it goes beyond the shallow conversation on a Sunday morning, like, hey, how are you? So glad you're here. That's great. But to where you spend life together and you know what's happening in each other's lives. Feeling known brings warmth. Knowing that you're attending a funeral, knowing that you're speaking at the funeral, praying in that moment that God would give you the words to say. That's being known. And that brings a certain type of warmth. Emotional warmth when you're struggling to carry things on your own. Community brings an emotional warmth, a spiritual warmth. The warmth of just knowing that you are loved. Like some of you need to know that. You need to find community so they can tell you, I actually do love you. I mean, people say that in very shock to me. Like, I actually do. I love you. And I'm like, yeah, you should. The warmth that comes when you know that people are praying for you, not just saying, oh, shame, I'm praying, and they're not actually praying, but going, oh, shame, I'm praying, I'm really praying. That brings warmth that you couldn't even pinpoint back to the person, but it matters. Acts 2, they knew this, they understood this, and that's why community wasn't an add-on to their faith, it was their faith in action. Part of their community was to live this out. The beauty of community is that we're stronger because of it. Verse 12 says, though one may be overpowered, two can defend themselves. A cord of 3 strands is not quickly broken. Now, in biblical symbolism, 3 represents completeness. Hence the Trinity, completeness. And when we read this is not the context of the verse, and so often we do take it out and we're like, oh, a cord of 3 strands wasn't. It was just talking about the rope. But if we looked at a New Testament point of view, through the lens of the New Testament, if we could make God the 3rd strand, in our relationships, in our community, in our marriages, in our friendships, in this church community, something remarkable happens. It's divinely fortified, put together, unbreakable. That's why I don't need to be white. I don't need to be black. He doesn't need to be, I am like, yeah, whatever. I don't need to be black. He doesn't need to be white. We have a common denominator, something that brings us together that's unbreakable. The 3rd cord is God. I might not understand everything in his culture. He definitely won't understand mine because I don't even. And here we have this thing. It's beautiful and it works. Why? Because God is in community. It's unbreakable. That's why Jesus says he prays this prayer. The prayer he actually prays for you and me. God, I pray that they may be one. I mean, that is Jesus' prayer, that we may be one. It's not a nice church value unity. It's actually biblical, and God himself wants this for you and for me. I mean, Jesus sent his disciples 2 by 2. He sent them out as a pair to go together. He declares that where 2 or 3 are gathered, there he is. Again, our gathering is not social. This one time I went to Silver Star with a friend of mine, and he knew the bikers at the bike club that were getting together on a Sunday at Silver Star. And I was like, guys, why do you guys do this? And he's like, because community. And it got me thinking, if the church looks the same as that community, or any other social club, paddle, you put in what you want to, are we doing it right? We don't want to be a social club. We can do social things together. This isn't a social club. This is sacred. And what God does here makes us stronger. And that's why church community matters. And together we can go play paddle and sweat. It's fine. Some of God's grace is only found in this room. Some of his voice is only heard when we're surrounded by other people who think like us and love Jesus. Some of his healing is only experienced when someone puts a hand on us. That's the beauty of community, is that we're stronger because of it. I've experienced this. I've lived this. From when I was 5 years old all the way through last year, very specifically, I felt this. I finally understood what community can do. When you lose one of the most important people in your life, and a church comes together, not because you're the pastor, but because you're a person, and they love you, and people come together and they pray for you and they bring meals for you and they meet you and they check in on you. And 6 months later, they may have stopped doing that, but it carried me. It carried me. I realized in that point, this is why community matters. Just this week, literally, I think it was Thursday, I found myself sitting in a room for 4 hours, alone, stressed out, a situation I've never had to deal with, way beyond they don't give you this in 101 pastor school, no. And I sat in that room, looking at random people walking past me, stressing about what outcome could happen. But I experienced community because 2 young adults phoned me and said, hey, we're on our way. I was like, I don't need you to come, I'm fine. Because leaders never stop being leaders, so you can't. It's like, I'm fine, leave me alone. But they came anyway, they couldn't care less. And what felt like an eternity in those 4 hours when those boys arrived, something inside of me changed. I wasn't stressing as much as I was. And then as I looked up 3 seconds later, I saw a woman walk in, one of our prayer ladies. And she sat down next to me. And all of a sudden, I had 3 other people around me when I was feeling so alone, so stressed out, obviously phoning my wife up and down. But I felt community. And it was so beautiful to know that even in my stress, even in that situation which I had no control over, there were people by my side. Not asking me, just being community. In my weakest moments, what kept me alive in my faith was that I wasn't a coal by myself. And the risk is always that we want to be alone in traumatic situations. Tim Keller says this: suffering can make you more lonely or drive you into deeper community. Choose the latter. Suffering can make you more lonely or drive you into deeper community. Let it be the latter. Now, I do want to add this. Let's not reduce community to crisis support. Both of my stories was crisis support. I lost my dad, crisis support. Sitting in a tough situation, crisis support. That's not community alone, not just the bad times. Community is for the good moments too. For the laughter at 11 p.m. because you know each other's history and you get along and you know the story and we should be going home, but it's so late, but it's so good to be in your company. And we met in church. Community should be for the celebration when someone you've been praying for finally gets breakthrough and they get a job, and you've been praying for a job, and they get a job, and guess what? They get to pay for the celebration because it's community. For the Sunday where nothing dramatic happens, but I'm just so happy to see your face. You literally made my day today because you came to church. Eating soup together, butternut soup with a roll for 20 Rand after the service. Please buy it. I don't want leftovers, people. Communities for the fun moments like what we just had at Holiday Club, where you're arriving before 7 o'clock, and by the time it's 7 o'clock, you've mocked each other so much. It's so much fun. It's the 2 o'clock conversations in the afternoon when the kids are gone and you're having deep conversations about life and where these young adults are going to end up. That is what community is about. It's way beyond a Sunday service. It's about doing life together. That's the church that we love and the church we see. I think we're way beyond the tick box church. I'm not just coming to church because I have to. It might get me a better seat in heaven. I don't even know if that's theologically correct, but we can check that. But actually, I come to church because someone needs me. And I need someone. And together, Jeãn toch. Imagine what could happen when we come together, not to tick a box, but to be the church. Imagine what could happen when we leave here and actually go and be the church, that people can see it's by the love that they have for one another, the love we carry. So here's my invitation as I wrap up. Come back to the fire. What God is doing here, in this church, at this time, in this community. Maybe your next step isn't dramatic. It's just coming closer. You know, you're on the outskirts and you're just like, one step forward. Maybe your next step, if you're online, is not watching the catch-up version of this message every week, but actually coming to church, sitting in the building, because these people need you. Maybe it's going to a life group that you've been putting off for a long time. I mean, we push life groups all the time. If there's not a life group for you, start one. You have to be a partner, but start one. T's and C's apply. If there's a team you've been meaning to serve in, sign up and serve. From my own experience, before I was the pastor, the youth pastor, or any P in there, I grew because I served. And I keep serving. Even this year at Holiday Club, we didn't have to. Shantae did an amazing job. Her team was great. But I told my wife, I will always be at Holiday Club if it's up to me. Why? What God does in that room. Little kids. You think you're impacting them, but man, how much they impact you. How good it is to see someone so young grasping Jesus. Community is built in serving, not sitting. So find where you need to serve. Maybe for some of you, it's literally just sitting with someone else that you don't really know after the service today. And going like, I'm going to push myself to make some friends. Again, I'm going to reiterate, they probably will be weird. Just push through. Keep talking. If they don't answer your questions immediately, keep asking better questions. If you're someone who was hurt by this church or a church, maybe for you today it's going, hey, like, I don't want to minimize your pain, so I'm going to say this as nicely as I can, but the fire is still burning, and you were the one that moved. So step back to where the fire is. We've all been church hurt by people. All of us. We have been hurt by people. But that will not stop us from stepping into community, because we know that this matters more than we know. If you've stepped away, you haven't missed your place in the fire. God's just inviting you back to it. Some of you might be cooling down, spiritually drifting. It's winter, sleeping on your faith. Not because you stopped believing, but maybe because you stopped gathering, where people can encourage the faith in you. And again, God's not condemning you for that. He's just calling you back. A coal by itself grows cold. But together, the fire burns bright. And then we have a lekker potjie. 2 are better than 1. 3 strands are not quickly broken. And a church gathered around the presence of God with you in your place, your coal adding to the heat of this fire. Darkness can't overcome that.